What if somewhere in the darkness between stars, there's an entire world that will never see a sunrise again? No morning, no warm horizon, no parent star. Just endless night, freezing silence, and a planet so alone that if you stood on it, the sky would look less like a sky and more like a sentence. That sounds like science fiction, but it is not, because astronomers have found worlds like this, and one of the most powerful telescopes humanity has ever built has now revealed one in terrifying detail. A giant planet, drifting through space, completely alone, untethered from any sun, glowing faintly in the dark like something that should not exist. And the most unsettling part is not that we found it. The most unsettling part is that we still do not know what it really is, where it came from, or how many more are out there right now, wandering unseen through the galaxy. Welcome to Orbit Ledger, and before we go any further, hit like now. If this story does not earn it, you can take it back at the end. Now let's begin. For most of human history, we understood planets in a simple way. Planets belonged to stars. That was the order of things. Mercury belonged to the sun. Jupiter belonged to the sun. Earth belonged to the sun. And everything in the sky seemed to follow that same basic rule. Stars were the anchors, and planets were the followers. It was a clean picture. The kind of picture that made the universe feel structured, stable, almost civilized. But the deeper we looked into space, the more that neat image began to crack. We started finding evidence that not every world is held in place, not every planet has a home, and not every object out there is part of some elegant cosmic arrangement. Some worlds are just lost. That is where this story begins. The James Webb Space Telescope, the most advanced infrared observatory ever launched, has been helping scientists study one of the strangest kinds of objects in the universe: rogue planets. These are planetary bodies that do not orbit a star at all. They drift alone through interstellar space, separated from the warmth and order we normally associate with the solar system. They are almost invisible, because they do not shine like stars and they do not sit next to stars that could expose them. They are dark, cold, isolated, and easy to miss. And yet Webb, with its extraordinary ability to detect infrared radiation, is giving us a way to see into that darkness and pull these hidden worlds into view. One of those objects is especially disturbing because it is not just a lonely world, it is enormous. This object, known as SIMP 0136, has a mass estimated at about 13 times that of Jupiter. That places it right on one of the most important boundaries in astronomy, close to the line between giant planets and brown dwarfs. The so-called failed stars that almost became something brighter and more powerful, but never quite crossed the threshold. In other words, this is not some small frozen rock drifting unnoticed through the void. This is a colossal, world-sized object, massive, mysterious, and close enough in cosmic terms to force a much bigger question. What exactly are we looking at here? Is it truly a planet that was thrown out of its system long ago? Is it a star that failed to ignite? Or is it proof that nature can build isolated worlds in ways we still do not fully understand? That question matters because this object should be incredibly difficult to study. A rogue planet has no nearby star lighting it up, no obvious transit to observe, no bright stellar backdrop making it easier to detect. Under normal circumstances, it should remain hidden, another silent body swallowed by the blackness. But James Webb was built for exactly this kind of challenge. It sees the universe in infrared, and that means it can detect the faint thermal glow of objects that are too cool, too dark, or too obscured for ordinary telescopes to study well. What Webb saw was not just a dim point in space. It saw enough detail for scientists to begin analyzing the object's atmospheric chemistry. And that is where the story becomes even more impressive. Using infrared spectroscopy, researchers were able to identify signs of water vapor, carbon monoxide, and carbon dioxide associated with this object. That is extraordinary, because we are talking about something wandering alone in the dark between stars, and yet humanity is already beginning to decode the gases surrounding it. This is one of those moments that reminds you how far we have come. A civilization on one small world, orbiting one ordinary star, built a telescope, launched it into space, and used it to study the atmosphere of a hidden giant drifting 20 light years away. There's a quiet American greatness in that achievement, not because it belongs to one nation alone, but because the boldness behind missions like Webb reflects the same frontier instinct that has always pushed our species to go farther than comfort would allow. But atmospheric clues are only the beginning. The deeper mystery is origin. There are several possibilities, and each one paints a different picture of how violent and chaotic the universe might really be. The first possibility is that this object formed the way stars form, through the collapse of a cloud of gas, but never gained enough mass to trigger full fusion in its core. In that case, it would be less like a traditional planet and more like a failed stellar object that ended up in planetary territory. The second possibility is even more dramatic. It may have formed around a star inside a planetary system like Jupiter formed around our sun and then been violently ejected. Imagine the forces required for that. Gravitational chaos, interactions with larger bodies, instability in a young system, perhaps even close encounters that turned a stable orbit into a one-way exile, a world born in the light, thrown into permanent night. That second scenario is the one that hits hardest, because it turns the universe into something less peaceful than we like to imagine. We tend to picture planetary systems as orderly machines, each object moving in its lane, each orbit predictable and secure. But rogue planets suggest a different truth. Systems can break. Worlds can be expelled. Gravity does not merely organize the cosmos. Sometimes it destroys belonging. A giant planet could spend millions of years forming around a star, only to be cast out forever, condemned to drift through interstellar darkness with no sunrise, no seasons, no sky as we understand it. A rogue planet stops feeling like a scientific category and starts feeling like a cosmic warning. There's also a third possibility, and it may be the most unsettling of all. Some of these objects may form independently, not as stars and not as planets in the usual sense, but as isolated bodies born alone from the start. If that is true, then the galaxy may contain far more hidden worlds than we ever imagined. Entire populations of dark giant objects roaming free through the Milky Way, uncounted because they are so difficult to find. That would mean the census of the universe is incomplete in a serious way. There may be an entire class of worlds out there that do not fit comfortably into our old categories, objects that force us to rethink what a planet even is. And that is why James Webb's observations matter so much. This is not just about one strange object. This is about opening a door. Every rogue planet we detect adds pressure to our theories. Every atmosphere we study adds evidence. Every new observation chips away at the assumption that planetary systems are always stable and that stars are always the center of every story. Webb is helping us prove something darker and more interesting. The galaxy is not just full of suns and the worlds that circle them. It may also be full of exiles. The future of this research could be even more dramatic. As new observatories come online, especially the next generation of giant ground-based telescopes, astronomers will be able to detect more of these wandering worlds and build a much larger sample. And with a larger sample comes something science depends on more than excitement: pattern. We may learn how often planets are ejected. We may learn where the line truly sits between super-Jupiters and brown dwarfs. We may learn whether isolated giant worlds are accidents, survivors, or a common product of cosmic evolution. That may be the most humbling part of all. Objects like SIMP 0136 were not suddenly created when Webb looked at them. They were already there, moving silently through the galaxy, ancient and unseen. The universe did not reveal them because it became more active. It revealed them because we became more capable. We built better eyes. We asked sharper questions. We pushed our tools farther into the dark. And in return, the dark answered with something strange. A giant world with no sun, no orbit, and no obvious place in the old map of reality. So the next time someone tells you space is empty, remember this. Empty is often just another word for unseen. Between the stars, there may be worlds with storms, atmospheres, heat, chemistry, and histories violent enough to rip them away from everything they once belonged to. Worlds that drift for ages in total night. Worlds that challenge the very definition of a planet. And now that James Webb has shown us one of them more clearly than ever, the question is no longer whether these cosmic loners exist. The question is, how many are still out there right now, moving through the black, with no sun above them and no one yet aware that they are passing by?